Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wealthy AF and what it truly means to be wealthy AF. And today I have Nemanja Sonero. And Nemaja's purpose is to invoke the conscious awakening and rise of men and women in this world, to serve as a vessel of love and inspiration for humanity. I'm glad that you have a clear purpose, brother, and I'm going to ask you to explain that to us in a minute here. For the last 24 years, Nemanja has been on a full-time basis teaching over 70,000 people across the globe in person and reached millions through his online programs and video. Today's podcast, in this conversation, I'm going to be digging in with Nemanja about traditional versus modern masculinity. My brother, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time to share with me and my audience today. Nemanja, tell us, what is it that you really do? Let's start there. Who are you and what is it that you really do? Because your purpose says, the purpose is to invoke the conscious awakening and rise of men and women in this world. One thing I know about purpose is that it's not what it means to the hearing person, but what it means to you. And I want to start there. What does it mean to you? What does that mean?
Beautiful. First of all, thank you for opening the door to your show and to have this conversation, which I feel are very relevant nowadays, especially with the topics we're gonna be with today. So thank you for that. It's interesting when you ask me this question. So what do I do? Or when people ask me, I try to simplify it. I try to bring it more beyond, or should I say, the poetic way that I like to speak, or maybe the esoteric ways. But in simple terms, I'm here to support men to come back to themselves, to their bodies, to their essence of who they are. And very often that is through their passions, through their mission, through their purpose. And same like my journey in my own way, what that was when I was younger, I did not know what that purpose is, but I always knew there was something out there for me where I can bring myself fully in the service, not just to myself, but now, especially what I do is mainly to others. So my focus are men. Even though I work with couples, I also work with women from time to time, but my focus are men due to my own journey of being a young man who did not know who he is, what he wants. I had no support from my father, who was very absent. And so I reached a point where I am now in my life where I can support men to come back to themselves fully and see what that really is. I hope that clarifies a little bit of what...
How do you do that? How do you help men?
Well, there's a term which we use in the last few decades. It's called men's work. And when I say men's work, that can be multiple things, but mainly that is a space created from men, whether it's in person or online, where they explore and learn about certain aspects of themselves. So that can be approached from a few perspectives. One is a therapeutic one. So that means healing certain aspects we carry mainly from our childhood, or certain things we acquired, picked up on the way. And that is one approach which I find it very important to heal what we do need to heal, so it doesn't stand anymore in our way of where we want to go. So that's one. Second aspect is more the yogic aspect, which I really love. So more embodiment, certain practices to support the men to understand what does it mean to be grounded, to be present, how to breathe properly, to slow down. So these are certain practices which are not so far from even our Western culture, even though they come mostly from the East. Still, any man can, even in this moment listening to this, can slow down, breathe through the nose, through the back of the throat, down into the lungs, and even further down into the lower abdomen. And in that process, slowing down the speech, slowing down and relaxing the nervous system, and becoming simply more calm and present in the body, which automatically not only affects him, but affects everyone around him and creates a safe space of trust and connection.
That, man, I really really dig what you're saying. When you say a man gets grounded, so you gave us one way. I suppose that's one of the ways a man or a human being can get grounded.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to tell me is, tell me about a time, a defining moment in your life that shaped your understanding of masculinity? Because the topic today is masculinity, right? Whether
Yeah.
traditional or modern. Tell us a story about a time that shaped you, how you got here.
Well, the story goes back again to the childhood where I grew up without a father. And even when he was physically perhaps present in my life, I never felt his presence with me and my brother and my mother. So he felt very distant, very absent. And to grow up without a father really impacted my life because being a man, young man, not knowing exactly what a man is, it really started to shift my perspective on what do I want to do with my life, who am I, and there was a lot of confusion in that process. And there was a moment for me, a pivotal moment, which shifted everything when we found out that my father has another family parallel to ours, which we didn't know about. So my mother finally decided to get a divorce and separate from my father, which despite everything that he did, and also the physical violence, everything that happened in my family, still I noticed there was a longing to have him by my side, to have that masculine presence in my environment, even though it was not a healthy one, it was a shadow aspect of it. Still, I deeply felt a longing to have that around me. So that I feel was a changing moment in my life. I was a teenager. And from that moment, I started to seek out other men, teachers in martial arts, in dancing, in deeper inner work that I found on the way, men who I felt walked a certain path that they can teach me and help me, meet myself in new ways and also do find my own masculinity or whatever masculinity is. And it changed. Certain things did change, but still masculinity in its essence, I believe, still remained the same. So I believe that was a shifting point where it opened up the doors for everything that I did in my life.
What internal conflicts have you faced regarding your own masculinity?
I feel that part, especially in my 30s and entering my 40s, was was a big question because what I also thought a man should be and do started to shift.
What was that? What was that you used to think men should be and do, and how did it shift? From what to what?
Well, I would say like this. I want to go a bit zooming out, also not just myself, but just zoom. I would say the classical or how we know masculinity throughout history is a few things. One is providing, so financial providing. Safety, so physical protection. So I'm speaking now more in the normal heteronormative terms, so man and a woman, yes. And the third one would be procreation. So that's something that the man was one of his main aspects, what he provided for the woman. And what I see nowadays is that is now only the foundation, only the basics. So the bar raised quite high, quite a bit with time. And now what I see, a lot of women are seeking much more than that. They're seeking also the presence of a man, his unwavering attention in all of her chaotic energy that she may be in. So his understanding of the moment of what is needed to lead her. So I feel there's a certain, I would say spiritual and also other forms of aspects which are now needed for a man to be in a successful relationship. So only just to provide, only to procreate, to protect her is not enough anymore. And this was my realization in my 30s in my marriage, which I had, where things just didn't work. And we tried so many things and arguing, coming back together, and again, it just didn't work. So what I thought was enough that I was providing was not.
Tell us about your experience in your marriage. What was it that didn't work? What was your biggest takeaway? Tell us that story. And what was your biggest takeaway that you now can share with young men, now in your 40s, with younger men, so that they don't make the same mistakes you made as it's on?
Well, one of them is that what I just shared is just providing financially for the woman is not enough. Just being the protector is not enough. So really, what I go back full circle again, can I have the acute sense of what is needed in each moment to liberate love in myself, but also in her. When, for example, the feminine or my feminine partner is feeling closed, feeling tense, feeling contracted, feeling she's pulling out of the space in the relationship. So how can I lead the relationship and her to bring her back to her heart, to bring her back into that openness where we can then communicate, where we can come back to what love is, what I find what love is. So this is something I did not know when I was in my marriage. I couldn't lead her into that place as I can now, for example.
How did you figure it out?
My teachers, my practice and everything that I learned, and also what's something that awakens most men, which is pain. So often for the men to actually ask and seek for support and understand, okay, something needs to change, something I need to work on, is often through painful moments. So pain became my teacher and a reminder that, especially in relationships, the way I have been doing things do not work anymore.
That's good stuff, man. Really good insights for men and younger men. Now, I want you to tell me, what advice would you give a woman on how to manage? Because, we live in an era today where, modern masculinity and whatever that means to you and whatever it means, you mentioned a moment ago that masculinity now, modern woman has set the bar even higher than providing and protecting and reproducing. The bar is higher, and that requires being present in the moment, knowing how to lead and all of these things. Mm-hmm. However, as men, from one man to another man, this type of stuff's not taught to us. So we either A, listen to a podcast like this, B, we have a man like you or me that can teach us these things, or a man like you in their life that could say, hey, or a therapist. For me, it was oftentimes a therapist and books and things that helped me grow. And so what advice are you giving to women that may have that baby, right? Because I call them babies, right? That's who I used to be. I'm talking about my younger version. Big baby, throwing temper tantrums. What advice are you giving to the ladies that are listening to this and are saying, yeah, that's my guy. That baby is my guy, right? Making excuses, not something and all that. What can you tell them to be able to help their men, right? Like, look, a lot of us men, dude, we're stubborn, right? A lot of times, and if we're in our quote unquote masculine, I don't need to listen, and we like to play. Some guys like to play games. But what advice are you giving to a woman to help her navigate those waters where her men? I'll share this with you. My therapist told me years ago, right? I went to a therapist and she told me years ago, the person that can help you become the best version of you is your wife. She's the only one that can call. You need to give her permission to call you on your nonsense, and you need to embrace it, reflect on it, and work on it. Her. That's not easy to do, brother. When you're that baby, right? That's not an easy thing to do. I'm just telling you because I've been there, and that shit is not easy. How do you tell a woman to navigate that in this day and age where women, you see women online, I need a man that's making $200,000, $1 million. It's like, this is not realistic, guys. The average makes 40 grand a year. Where are you coming from? You want a dude that's making $500,000, $1 million, 200,000. Like, only like 8% of the population in America makes over 100,000. Like, what are you talking about? You're competing for these guys. But that guy that's making 40 grand, right? That guy that's making 40 grand, if he's got the right ambition and the right vision and the right lady, can be that guy that makes $1 million, $500,000, $2 million, right? I know because I was that guy and I've navigated those waters, right? So what advice are you giving a woman to that respect?
Well, what we do see, especially in the Western society nowadays, women are also stepping up in certain aspects. And also there's a certain shift, I would say, is happening, which we see in relationships. There's a lot of, I would say, especially last few years since COVID, there's an increase in divorce rate, quite high. And there's different reasons for that. Of course, there's individual, but also some more broad. What I am seeing a lot, and I will start from this perspective, there's a certain, I'll call it polarity flip in relationships.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So that, from the perspective, and I will speak now more archetypally, masculine, feminine energies. From what I learned also from the Eastern cultures, in India they call it Shakti and Shiva, in China they call it Yin and Yang, whatever you want to call it, there's certain polarities we all carry within. How I learned is that the man, his essence, his core is masculine. And of course, there are certain attributes and aspects of the feminine energies we all also carry within. That does not make us less masculine or man. It's just certain aspects of more compassion, of more connection to the heart. So all these are beautiful attributes. What we see nowadays is a certain flip, which very evident in relationships, where I would say the woman would more embody the masculine energy over her feminine, and man would embody more the feminine over his masculine. So this is not for everyone, of course, but this is a common thing that I see when coaching couples and meeting men, yes. So that started around 40, 50 years ago with the whole Woodstock era. Men started to explore more their feminine, more their flow energies, and women just started wanting to step up more. So we see nowadays women are actually in education and also in money, especially in USA, the bar is raising quite high. So women are making much more money often than their partners. And unfortunately, we see the men in their education is the rates are dropping quite quickly, along with the money they make. So there is a certain financial flip. There's a flip in their polarity, in the masculine and feminine energies. So there's struggle that happens, which can work perhaps for a while for some people, but what I see on the broader picture, in the long run, it just doesn't work. Okay, so eventually I do see the women are unhappy, frustrated. Same with men; they cannot express fully who they are. They want to lead, but they don't know how. So when you ask me what should I perhaps say to the woman, I would say maybe this, in connection to what I just shared, is I fully support women to stand on their own, to build their financial kingdom, whatever they want to do. But I do call also women, when they come home to their partners, to come back to their essence, to come back to their core, to come back to their feminine energies, and to really allow themselves to rest. And by allowing that to themselves, they also invite the man to step into his core essence and his leadership, so he can be the best man he can be. So instead of doing something for him, I think this is the best gift she can give him, by resting in his arms and really opening her heart for him, and not bringing her energy of work and leadership to the relationship. It's not a 24-hour thing. Of course, sometimes we need to address certain things in certain ways, but overall, I believe what I mean, which is to come back to our essence and allow love to emerge.
I love that you said that, brother. I have a couple of one of my business partners, okay, they female. She's a doctor, very successful, very smart, beautiful lady, physically, mentally, beautiful person, beautiful human being, single lady, and I love her to death. I have quite a few female friends like this. I have another female friend in California, in her 40s, again, a television producer. We're good friends, doing very well for herself. And I have another friend, female friend, good friend of mine. She's an executive for a nonprofit at a high level, oversees over 200 employees. And all of these, I have sometimes I'll go and hang out with them, and when we get on a call, or we'll go out to dinner, or they come to the house and spend time with my wife and I, or we're just hanging out. These are the questions, right? These are the things that come up. And the thing is, that exactly what you just shared. It's like, hey guys, you guys all have these wonderful attributes, and I'm having these conversations all separately, right? Not all of them, but just one to one or in a small setting, my wife and I and them. Hey, you have these great attributes, but when you're at work, you're in your masculine, you're leading, you're running the show, you are the boss. When you come home, you have to learn how to take off that hat. And a lot of women have not, that's an art. And a lot of women have not been able to master that. In today's day and age, with all the propaganda from the feminist movement, you gotta go, you gotta be the boss bitch and all of this stuff that they preach. But in actuality, it's hurting relationships. I was at an event, I don't know, I'm going to say 2 years ago at I'm a real estate investor. I buy real estate, what I do for a profession, right? I'm a real estate guy, buy fixed real estate, buy rent apartments. I own a bunch of apartment buildings. And me and my business partner, this Doc, call her Doc. Doc and I were at an event, and we were with one of our investment private equity firms. They lend us money. So they are one of the firms that gives us money for our investments, right? And the CEO of that company, which he owns a bank, right? His coach is a woman. And I think this is an interesting story I want to share with the listeners and yourself. His coach is a woman. And me and my partner were sitting there, my female doctor partner, we're sitting there, and I'm watching this woman. And as you know, as a man, I can identify, I can see it. I'm watching this woman turn it on and off on stage, literally, like go masculine, go feminine on stage. I see her off stage when she's talking to her mentee, because she's coaching the CEO of this big firm. And I see her going in her masculine and calling him on his bullshit, right? Like I could tell. And then she sits down with me and Doc, and she's fully in her feminine. And I'm like, so I pulled her to the side. We're having dinner. First of all, I told my partner, I said, listen, you see that lady over there? You need to spend time with her. I said, you need to spend time with her. She comes off a Fortune 500. She just retired off of a Fortune 500 CEO. And look at how she's talking about her husband. Look at how she's talking about her children. Look at how she's conducting herself. Look at how when she sits here with us, how she's doing it. She can turn it on and off. She knows when to put the business hat on. She knows when to lead, and she knows when to go into. I actually complimented her, Nemanja. I actually complimented her. She sat with us for dinner, and I was like, I got to tell you, I got to compliment you on something I'm observing with you. And I just love the way that you can put the hats on and off, and I'm watching you do it, literally real time, right? And she gave me a hug, and she was like, Martin, I worked so hard at this. She gave me a hug, she kissed me, and I met her husband during that weekend. She was like, I worked so hard at this because I struggled with this for years. But there are women that can do it. And I think that for those women that are getting it hard and are out there, they need to find that woman that is doing it successfully. This particular lady's been married for 30 years. I mean, you got to see her. She's talking about her kids, grown kids, and her grandkids. She lights up. And her husband, and how her husband plans of vacations and leads and this and that, she lights up. And at the same time, she's talking about business and what you need to be doing in your business to grow your business. I mean, it's beautiful, beautifully done. So there are women that can do it.
Yes.
The question is, where do you find those women, and how do those women master that art?
That's a good question. And all of these things we're talking about is really an art form, a practice. And this is why these spaces you asked about, like what is men's work, literally the spaces we create also for couples that I work with, retreats we have for 7 days, for example. One part of the building women, one part of the building men. We often work with them individual as groups, and then we bring them together. We do certain practices of how to transmit, for example, masculine certain aspects through the body, through the words, through the eyes, and same for the women. How can they soften up their bodies? How can they learn to receive? How can they transmit certain feminine aspects through the body? So it is a practice. And it is a practice because most of us did not learn this in our stages of growing up. There's a natural thing that emerges, yes, but also the way our society is structured at the moment, like you said, the grind, the push. For women now, it's becoming also a crutch. And if she does not practice that consciously, it will affect their relationship, it will fail their relationships, or she will attract a man who is highly submissive, so the polarity can exist. And eventually both, not saying for everyone, but eventually both will end up not happy with that. So it is a practice, and it's not an easy one. It's definitely not an easy one, but I do believe it works because I am in a relationship with my girlfriend, and we are now in 5 weeks, we're expecting our first baby. So
Congratulations, man.
thank you. Thank you. And we've been through a lot of work for 5.5 years. We've been together. We've done a lot of things together to understand these dynamics because she's a powerful, strong woman, a lot of masculine energy, but a lot of feminine energy in her. So she's making multiple six figures. She knows how to lead, how to structure, how to hold the company. And it took us a long time for her to learn also, and for me, other things. How, when we're in a relationship, to, like you say, the hat out. This is not the space for that. So we had a lot of clashes and conflicts. With all the respect, I use the word, we had cockfights and fights because it just didn't work. And all of these things she carries, I fully support her business and everything. But in the relationship, it's not always the most practical thing. And it's beautiful to hear that you met someone who's literally a master that can switch easily. It's right.
Now that we're having this conversation, I'm going to call her and I'm going to have her on this podcast because because she does it so beautifully. And that same woman, we were at a parade. We were at, I saw that same lady last year. Again, my partner and I were there, and with the same company. And we were at a parade in Louisiana. We closed the street down. The bank closed the street down, and we paraded to dinner. Really cool experience. And she was with her husband. And her husband, they were holding hands. He was holding hands. We were all walking in the parade. And her husband, I can see his confidence. Here he has this high-powered woman, right? That is, right? Woman with power, woman. And I can see he was so comfortable in his skin, in his man, then holding his husband. And, people are calling on her and pulling on. And he would confidently tell his wife, "Go, babe, I'm right here. Go do your thing. Do your thing. I got you. I'm right here." Confidently. It was beautiful. I could, this couple's been married 30 plus years. They have grandkids now. And like I said, she's a retired Fortune 500 CEO. Now coaching up and coming Fortune 500 CEOs. That's her role now. She just coaches other CEOs. She's no longer inside of the business world. So she's helping other up and coming young CEOs get to the level she helped them. So I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. The way that I saw that happening. Go ahead, brother.
Just to one thing, just want to add on to, now we spoke about a woman, and she's a beautiful example. Also my girlfriend, very powerful woman. But I will just quickly name one thing, which is for men specifically. I grew up with a household without a father, so my mother had to take over to be both. Later on, I was the only man I was a professional dancer. I still am a professional dancer. So I was the only man often in the dance company where I danced. So I had a lot of feminine influence. So I would say my feminine over the time just got very, very developed, even overdeveloped. So there was that disconnect from the masculine. So my personal practice, full circle to the original story, I had to practice to come back to my essence. And in relationships, it's a perfect ground to do that. Ideally, we would enter all relationship perfect and all, but we're not. So relationships are beautiful ground to practice together consciously how we can come back to what are our strengths, to see where our differences and shadows, and really come together to support that emergence of the qualities we can have. So I feel so much more in my masculine energy, clear in a healthy expression, and her in her feminine, because we intentionally went there.
Yeah.
I don't hear.
Okay, there you go. So I love that you said that, because I was going to make a point around that. As men in relationships, there's a time that I have to let my wife lead. and I'm comfortable with that, right? There is a time, I'm horrible when it comes to sense of direction. I just am. And we know that. We both know that. And my wife says, I don't know why you have a GPS. You never follow it. It's you're she's right. Yeah, she's right. Like, me and that thing don't get along, right?
Yeah.
So there's a time where it's like, babe, literally I'll say, babe, you lead us. Go, lead the way, because you're better at this than me. We have our little inside joke. She's got poor eyesight, although now in my 40s, my eyesight is, regressing a little bit. And she's got poor eyesight. She's always had, and I've had poor hearing. I've always had. And I'm like, babe, I'm the eyes, you're the ears. That's how we roll, right? When I can't hear something, you're leading the way. You got my back. When you can't see something, I got you, right? So, there's a time that it's like, when it's in communicating with children, with the kids, and my kids are not small anymore, like, I got to let her lead. She is significantly more emotional intelligent than I am when it comes to kids and communicating kids. I know that. So it's like, babe, here's what I want to communicate. How do I communicate this in a way that doesn't make everyone pissed, doesn't piss everyone? Should I deliver it or you deliver it? You tell me, right? So there is a time that you need to let your woman lead. Also, women, there's a time you need to let your men lead. And it's a yin in the relationship of knowing that. I want to go back and I want to ask you another question around what you mentioned a moment ago. You being in feminine energy as for a long time, and that overdeveloped for you. What are some of the positive aspects of traditional masculinity that we in society can carry forward, right? Because a lot of women nowadays, I don't know, it's just weird, dude. I could be wrong here, Nemanja. I could be wrong. It's weird. It's like a lot of women are looking for feminine guys. Like, hey, man, like my core, the way God made me, and I believe in God, I'm kind of apologetic about that. The way God made me, or whatever you believe in, right? It's to want to provide. It's to want to protect. It's to want to do those things that you mentioned. And it almost seems like on the internet that there's a movement, a subtle movement of that's toxic. A man that must be this toxic. No, it's not. It's the way God made me. Toxic is an insensitive man, an asshole that mistreats people, that yells at people. That's toxic. A man wanting to provide and protect and do those things that God put innate in us is not toxic. That's natural. That's the way God made it. So what are some of the positive aspects of traditional masculinity that we can carry forward as a society and as we evolve as a society?
Well, there's a few reasons. I believe it's actually important also to name. There's a few reasons why what I see that this is happening at the moment, and in connection to the traditional ways. Traditional ways it's been like that for hundreds of thousands of years. It's nothing new. Correct. So there's a certain essence that we carry, which is not going to be changed no matter what culture or modern technology we have. So we can, of course, and I see it especially, like I said, in the West. I live in Europe, but it's a bit different how things operate here at the moment. But I do observe what's happening in the West, in USA, Canada, also UK. And like I mentioned before, historically, the masculine, I would say, aspect in men went to a certain almost far end range of what does it mean to be a man. And I divide it simply in a healthy version and a shadow version. I don't use the word toxic. I don't like the word. I don't think it applies to this. Yeah, it's not something I use. So in psychology, we call it the shadow. The shadow means anything that we suppress, that we ignore, that we don't allow to emerge. That we call shadow. So to emerge into the healthy version, we have to meet our shadow. So that's dance usually that we have, also through therapy and whatever aspects we do. So the tradition, there's nothing I see is wrong with being masculine in it. Like it's not even wrong, it's necessary. So, and this is not even for me a negotiable or even to have a discussion. Like, it's necessary to be. Now, what is happening lately, of course, people are spotlighting the shadow aspects, historical aspects, where men, of course, abuse power, were tyrannical, rape, murder. So all of these aspects, unfortunately, happen throughout history, and that is the shadow aspect. There's a whole reasons why that happened, but that is not masculinity as in its purest form. So what I see happen, especially the last 15, 20 years, is men started to avoid to be in their masculinity because suddenly masculinity was associated only with the shadow aspects. Yeah, so there was a certain avoidance, and of course with the Me Too movement, which is also has its bonuses and pluses, there's a certain push on the masculinity. Suddenly it became a wrong term, so men started to avoid being that energy, avoiding leadership, avoiding responsibility, which is not who we are. That's not, I mean, all the men that I work with, and I work with a lot of them, they all want to be good men. They all want to lead. They all want to provide. They all want to do good. All of them. So these are some things that I see now in society. The pendulum is swinging again back. So there was an exploration of women to be in their masculine. Fine, go take your power back. It's important for men to be more soft. And now the pendulum is swinging back, and it's messy. It's messy on the way back. It's understanding who I am, what do I do, especially see with teenagers nowadays. There's a lot of confusion of who they are. So that's something I feel we have to go through to come back to a certain balance where we can carry both aspects and know still what is our essence and what are we doing here and who are we. So I feel we are in that process, in that transition of coming back home to who we are, who we truly are.
Love that. You mentioned being in dance. Again, I want to go back to that and being around a lot of feminine energy. And a lot of us young men that grow up without fathers, especially in Latinos, right?
Yeah.
Fathers have other families secretly, Hey, listen, I remember growing up, I was about 7, 8 years old in the Dominican Republic. And my dad living, may he rest in peace, loved my old man. I had my challenges with him, but still, my dad is my dad. God rest his soul. And I remember as a kid, my dad having an apartment with my little brother's mom, because he had another woman, a little brother, right? And I remember him taking me with me, literally, Nemanja, 2 blocks up, and he had a business across the street. So I remember seeing my dad. That's where my entrepreneurs were. I see my dad and my mom work hard, had a business. He lived across the street, had a wife there with my little brother. 2 blocks up, you go 2 straight blocks and you make a right. He had another woman pregnant with my little sister, with Yamet. And I remember this, dude. Like, I really remember my dad taking me, showing me the game, right? This is the stuff I'm picking up. That's what I wind up doing years later. Wind up doing the same shit because that's what I saw my masculine dad, right? Not exactly, I didn't get another woman pregnant, but I did my dirt. I thought that was what you do. That's what a man does. That's what I saw. Not understanding that this was projected onto me and I had to deal with it and I had to, it's not what I wanted for my life. That's not really masculine. But in a Latino community and Afro-Latinos and Latinos in general, that's the masculine man, you multiple women and multiple kids and multiple. That's not it. That's not it. What can you share a story for yourself of a man who defied traditional masculinity and inspired you?
Who defied traditional masculinity?
Can you share a story of a man who you were like, man, this is the type of man I aspire to be, or I like to learn from him? Can you share a story? Did you have a man in your life like that helped you?
I believe this is multiple men. It's not one. And I always had mentors. Even though I'm mentoring others, I always have a mentor, and my mentor has a mentor. So there's a tradition in that. So I'm lucky that it's not one. It's a few, and some of them I met through martial arts that I've been studying in my life. Some of them through dancing. You probably know capoeira from Brazil. Capoeira, the martial art dance mix. So one of my teachers, he's 91, so he's a very old school teacher, and he still travels the world in his mission and purpose. So he was one of those people who was there to call me out on my bullshit, who was there to
We need those.
teach. Yes, very important. This is also what men's work is. So we reflect each other, we call each other on each other's bullshit willingly. So people like him, and also in martial arts, other men, so they all carried certain aspects and attributes which I feel I took the best out of them all. And very important to name, even though they were highly known and respected in their communities of what they do, they also carried their own shadows. So they also carried their own parts, which, like you mentioned, in Latino communities, normal. So one of them was Brazilian, the other one was Cuban. So as much as they were beautiful teachers and guides, they also had their own
shit.
Yeah, had their own shit. And this is also my realization with time, which is I have teachers who are amazing, and I feel I'm doing much better in my life than I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But I also carry shit like they do. We're all imperfect, and this is my journey. I'm not focused on the end goal. I'm focused on the journey, and I'm very much aware that also I carry my own shadows, and I want to be surrounded by men and people who can call me out on that, because I want to do better. So it's not just my teachers, elders, but also the men I have now in my life. They're all the time around me, and when something's happening, I go to them. We have our meetings, we have our gatherings, and they call me out. And I want it.
100%. A real man.
I want it.
100%, because that's how you get better. Tell me a story about your older teacher, your 91-year-old teacher, where he's actually called you out on your shit, and you didn't like it, and you went home and you were maybe pissed off, because that probably happened to you as a young man. It happens, right? Someone calls you out on your shit, and you're like, fuck this guy or whatever, right? And then you go home and you reflect, and you're like, shit, he was right. I need to go make right. Tell us a story like that, if you have one, of a time where he called you out on something, and how did he do it?
I don't remember. I haven't seen him in a long time, so I'm a bit out of capoeira in that community. I had my reasons, and also one of the reasons I will mention is that I didn't like certain kind of behaviors he was holding. Like, it was a bit like leading, but sometimes overpowering me. So that's what I mean by shadows. So he's doing his best, but he also can mess up. So I don't remember specifically with him, but maybe the more recent one that I feel, and it doesn't need to be an elder, it can be literally a man of my age, even younger. But I was sharing about my relationships to them. I was sharing about my struggles, and I remember I was more in the victim, blaming my partner for certain things she did. And I remember my friends were just listening, and they were like, at some point when I stopped, so it was time for them to reflect, and they called me out on that. They really called me out, like, it's not your partner, it's not the outer world to blame. No, man, look at yourself, look at the shit you're avoiding to step into your responsibilities. You're avoiding to lead. You're playing small. You're blaming others instead of blaming your own. So all of these things, like, it hits you. But I was like, I really needed that.
How did that make you feel as a man? Like, to have other men call you on that?
Oh, it's beautiful, man. I have to say, it's one of the biggest gifts I have in my life. This is why I love men's work. Like, I have their mirrors to tell me what's up. Otherwise, they're just looping like a hamster on a wheel. So that's not how I want to live. And if I want to lead in the business that I do, and also if I want to lead my family and my future daughter, I need these men to call me out on my shit.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So,
yes.
So yeah, that man can be really anyone. I mean, look, these workshops that we do sometimes one day a week, you can meet a man the first day you meet him, and you start to having these kind of conversations and certain practices. Even someone you just met can see, we can train them very easily to see and to see in themselves, but also see in the other, and to how to support each other and call each other out in a constructive way. So it can be someone you just met. If you're open for that, if you're open to receive it, you can learn from almost anyone. So
I love that, dude. This is great. I got two more questions for you because I want to be respectful of your
Yes, sir.
time. So my next question is, what advice are you giving to young men, young boys, struggling to understand what it means to be a man in today's world?
Well, one of the first things is that you don't have to do it all alone. And this is maybe one of those old paradigms which I'm not standing for, which is the lone wolf story, that we're all lone wolves and I can do it all alone, I can push through it. And this is for me a reminder for young men: you're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. And we all came from tribal societies and I lived in a tribe in the Amazon, and I know how it works. They all raise one child is not raised by one parent. The whole tribe is raising one child, so everyone is a parent. So for me, it's a reminder for men to seek support, to ask support, to know that there is someone out there that they don't have to feel lonely, and that they have to move through life in their own mind all the time and loop into that. So I feel this is one of the biggest things that I've learned with time, and an important reminder that we have each other. And there are out there men and groups who want, and women too, of course, who want to support. And life becomes much more graceful and beautiful when we remember that. And when we have each other by our sides, and I feel from that moment everything shifts. So I would remind men, young men, of that. You're not alone.
And my final question is, what haven't you shared with me and the audience that you should have shared that would bring a tremendous amount of value to the audience and myself?
I would say slow down. And this is also what I shared in the beginning of the call. Really slow down to feel your body, to feel your breath, to feel the hair on the skin, and just to feel what's happening, not just within, but also around. To notice the nature, to notice the people we have around us. Because life moves very fast, day by day, week by week. So one of my main practices for myself is to remind myself again and again to slow down, so I can see what's happening, so I can enjoy more in all the gifts that I'm receiving in my life. And I have many to be grateful about. So slow down.
Great advice, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. And really, we really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. As the listeners know, and this is what it truly means to be wealthy AF. It means different things. It's not just money, but it's in the internal piece, right? I said to my wife the other day, jokingly to her, I said, "Hey, babe, we've been through so much, and look at where we are today. How does it feel?" It was a funny comment. I said, "How does it feel to be rich, right?" And she said to me, she goes, "Babe, we've been rich for so many years." You know what I mean? She's like, and she meant it in the spiritual way, in the fact that we have a peaceful marriage, we have great kids, we have our health, and that's what it means to be truly wealthy AF. It's an encompassing wealth of things. It's not just money. As you may or may not know, there are a lot of wealthy people out there that are that haven't figured these things out. And what good is having all the money in the world if you don't have people to share it with and have experiences with and live a wonderful life of health and abundance? So, my brother, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you being here. If people wanted to connect with you, find you, where do they find you on social media? How do they connect? Where do they find you?
So it's the same name: Facebook, Instagram, my website, which is Nemanja Sonero. So NEMANJASONERO.com. So same name everywhere, and it's quite easy to find. And so if anyone has something to share or ask, I'm here. I'm always doing my best to reply, of course, to everyone, to be of support, which is my work.
And you have coaching programs that you offer guys if guys wanted to learn under you, or 10-year programs. I know you mentioned some couples things. Where do people find those? If we have a listener that's
Mm.
I want to attend one of those events that he mentioned casually,
Mm.
where do they find them?
Yeah, so mainly on my website, so what I named nemajasonero.com, and we just had a beautiful Haka event last weekend in Amsterdam. So Haka is a Maori warrior tradition, like a warrior dance. So we had 60 men in the space. So sometimes I do these kind of live events, which are very, very beautiful. Sometimes for couples. And online, I think my most exciting thing, which I love to do, it's a 3-month journey mastermind for men, which is coming now in May. And I love the 3-month concept because there is time to process, to learn, to integrate. So we have this window of 3 months to really dive in deeply. So this is only for 16 men each round that I do, and you can find it also on my website. And yeah, I'm simply available for couples, for individuals. But these are like my most exciting offers that I have because I love them personally. I love the time frame where we can just go in and really do the work.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate your time. It's been an honor to have you, and it's been an honor having you share all of these wonderful insights that men and women, not just this message is not just for men. So, ladies, men, this message is not just for men. Women, you guys need to know this information too.
Mm.
Having a discussion with a lady recently about that, and it was like, hey, you need to be empowered with this information as well, so you can understand how your spouse or your man is, why he does certain things, why it gives you better perspective and easier way for you to navigate things.
Thank you for a beautiful conversation. I feel what you're doing is very important, very beautiful. I feel there's a certain aspect, financial wealth, but also the spirit. So the two, when the two merge, the middle, I feel, is the wholeness, which I really want to support. So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.